Chapter 211. Bello is the English translation of the text, with all Vietnamese notes and parenthetical explanations removed for a clean flow. Hearing Queen Medusa's implied refusal, many people felt surprised. Although the heavenly flame possessed extremely enormous power, for the snake people race, this object seemed to hold little appeal, right? After all, for their lineage of in cold blood, this extremely violent and destructive type of heavenly flame was like water and fire, absolutely impossible to fuse with. Therefore, when they heard Queen Medusa's words of refusal, which carried a hint of regret, Gu He and the strong experts beside him, Xianxia and Feng Li, all wore looks of astonishment. Does this woman have a problem with her head? Why keep a heavenly flame that's practically useless to her? Wouldn't it be better to trade it for something more useful? Isn't that better? Xianxia shook his head helplessly, unable to comprehend the reason. Beside him, the wind traveler Feng Li also shook his head slightly, his face full of puzzlement. Compared to their astonishment, Yumi and Mo Ba Si, who were above the city wall, were much calmer and more composed. They completely understood what Queen Medusa was planning with this refusal. Alas, sure enough, Her Majesty the Queen really intends to do that. Otherwise, she wouldn't have so resolutely refused this kind of trade condition. Yumi sighed softly and murmured. Mo Ba Si nodded slightly, a hint of worry and bitterness appearing on his cold face. Hehe, truly worthy of being Queen Medusa. To resolutely reject such generous trade conditions is unexpected. Xiao Yan, whose body was hidden beneath the giant rocks, slightly raised his head to look at the beautiful figure and couldn't help but lick his lips. It is indeed a bit strange. Normally speaking, a heavenly flame shouldn't hold much appeal for the snake people, right? So why did she refuse? Is she perhaps afraid that after Gu He obtains the heavenly flame, his great increase in strength will pose a danger to the snake people race? But that reason isn't very logical. Experts of the same caliber as the Pill King Gu He rarely participate in battles between the two sides. Otherwise, Queen Medusa would likely start a massacre the moment she appeared. Yao Lao's voice was also full of doubt. He pondered for a long while, then suddenly realized something and said in a trembling voice, "Could it be?" "What is it, teacher?" Xiao Yan furrowed his brow slightly and asked in a low voice within his heart. "I'll tell you the details later." Yao Lao replied quickly, then fell silent again. No matter how much Xiao Yan yelled in his heart, he didn't respond. Xiao Yan yelled once more, then shook his head, sighed softly, and muttered, "So secretive." Queen Medusa's refusal stunned Gu He for a moment, but his temperament was not something an ordinary person could compare to. The astonishment on his face was quickly reined in. He frowned as he looked at Queen Medusa in the distance, took a light breath, and said, "Your Majesty the Queen, your refusal is somewhat beyond my expectations. I don't like to beat around the bush too much, so the trade conditions I offered before were already the most precious items I could possibly produce. I originally thought they could move your Majesty the Queen's heart. Unfortunately, I seem to have forgotten something. Grandmaster Gu He, the conditions you offered truly tempt me, but due to some reasons, the heavenly flame is currently very important to me." Queen Medusa smiled, the look of regret on her face never concealed. Evidently, she was indeed tempted by the treasures Gu He had offered. Gu He sighed. A slight hint of bitterness appeared on his face. He knew very well that if Queen Medusa was unwilling to consider trading the heavenly flame, then even with the strength of their group, they absolutely couldn't forcefully pressure her. "Can you tell me why you want to keep the heavenly flame?" Gu He said with a bitter smile. "I'm sorry. I cannot." Queen Medusa shook her head slightly, waved her hand, and said indifferently, "Forget it, Grandmaster Gu He, please return quickly. As for compensation for the damages, there's no need. Just leave this place swiftly. The leaders of my 8 great tribes of the snake people race have already returned. Some of them bear very deep malice towards your human race, so you should take this opportunity to leave quickly, lest some unnecessary trouble arise later." Hearing Queen Medusa's words, Gu He sighed bitterly and turned his head to look at his companions, his face full of helplessness. "Old He, are we just going to leave like this? Xianxia glanced at Queen Medusa in the distance and frowned. If we don't leave, what else can we do now? You all know what Queen Medusa's strength is like. Do you think you can handle someone so strong? He sighed. He clearly didn't want to return empty-handed, but their collective strength truly wasn't overwhelming. And this was their opponent's territory. If they decided to act, he was afraid the outcome wouldn't be good. Hearing Guhi's words, Xianxia and Fengli were also subdued. Their strength was clearly no match for Queen Medusa. Immediately, the two of them turned their eyes toward the black-robed men on the side and asked in a low voice, "What is Sect Master Yun's opinion?" Seeing Xianxia's action, Guhi's gaze also turned toward the black-robed men, waiting for him to speak. The black-robed men remained silent and didn't immediately answer Xianxia's question. Everyone waited quietly. Queen Medusa on the opposite side also silently fixed her gaze upon the black-robed men. Under everyone's scrutiny, the black-robed man finally moved after a long while. The figure slowly advanced. One step at a time. His black robe lifted slightly, revealing a hint of a snow-white, elegant chin. His clear but cold voice faintly emerged, "I once accidentally saw some information regarding your Snake People race's queen in an ancient text. It stated that when Queen Medusa reaches the peak of Do Huang with enough fortune, she can use a type of heavenly flame for a bizarre evolution. After this evolution, Queen Medusa will not only be able to freely transform into human form, but her strength will also surge like a torrent, advancing to become a Do Zone level expert. However, the probability of success for this type of evolution seems to be extremely low, and furthermore, the most important basis for this evolution must rely on that heavenly flame. I suspect that Her Majesty the Queen's refusal to trade this heavenly flame is because she wants to use it for the purpose of this evolution, is that not so?" The black-robed man slightly raised his head and spoke calmly. As expected. Hearing the voice from high up, Yao Lao suddenly exclaimed, slightly sighing with fright, "I didn't think Queen Medusa had this idea." "Ah. Hey, kid, didn't you hear?" "Ah." Startled by Yao Lao's voice, Xiaoyan said in a confused, low voice, "That voice, why does it sound different from that night? And yet it seems somewhat familiar and a bit unfamiliar. Does teacher feel this way? I'm not interested in women's voices, so why would I care?" Yao Lao said helplessly. His attention to pills far surpassed women, so even hearing a wonderful voice could hardly create a sense of enchantment. Ahem. Xiaoyan gave an awkward cough, dropped the thought about the voice, and said in a low voice, "So can Queen Medusa really use the heavenly flame to evolve into a Do Zone expert?" "She certainly can, but the danger of this evolution is extremely high. If she's careless for even a moment, she'll be completely burned into nothingness by the heavenly flame. The chance of resisting is almost nil. This evolution is truly bizarre to the extreme. As for exactly how the transformation occurs, I'm not entirely clear. Normally, only those within the race would know such things," Yao Lao chuckled. Xiaoyan gave a bitter laugh. Why was this matter so complicated? He immediately shook his head helplessly, looked up at the quiet sky, and murmured, "Just hurry up. That way, I'll have a chance to sneak in and steal the heavenly flame. Queen Medusa's aura is a little strange. Yes, it always feels a bit illusory." Yao Lao's soul perception quietly enveloped the sky, and he suddenly spoke in a strange tone. "What does that mean?" Xiaoyan remained still for a long time, then suddenly came to his senses and asked in surprise, "Are you saying this Queen Medusa is fake? The distance is too great, and I'm afraid of being discovered, so I only sensed it briefly. It does seem a little abnormal." Yao Lao said helplessly. "This matter is getting more and more complicated," Xiaoyan whispered again, then gradually fell silent, his eyes fixed on the sky. Hearing the words spoken by the black-robed men, Queen Medusa's expression visibly shifted. Her enchanting pupils fixed intently on the black-robed men, filled with a cold intent. She softly said, "I didn't think you would know about this matter. It is truly somewhat outside of my expectation. Not only do I know that you must possess the heavenly flame to complete your evolution, but I also know that you, right now, are merely an energy body construct of Queen Medusa's will. I presume the real Queen Medusa is preparing for her evolution somewhere. The black-robed man said indifferently. As soon as the black-robed man finished speaking, everyone on both sides was shocked. The faces of Yumi and Mo Ba Si changed drastically. They exchanged glances, each seeing a trace of worry in the other's eyes. Sect Master Yun, are you saying that Queen Medusa is just an energy body right now? Xianxia pointed at Queen Medusa in the distance, his face astonished. In his senses, he hadn't detected anything amiss. Yes. The black-robed man nodded slightly. His foot gently lifted, then quietly stamped down, and his figure instantly vanished. The moment the black-robed man disappeared, Queen Medusa's expression in the distance changed slightly. Just as she was about to move, a black shadow instantly appeared behind her. A white, jade-like arm reached out and landed silently on Queen Medusa's back. Audacious. Seeing the black-robed men act instantly, Yumi and Mo Ba Si's expressions changed dramatically. The two energy wings on their backs vibrated, and they swiftly lunged towards the black-robed men. Heh, you shouldn't interfere. Two black shadows also darted out quickly, and halfway, Xianxia and Feng Li intercepted them. The atmosphere in the sky, which was originally cordial, instantly became tense and hostile. Ignoring the movements around him, the black-robed men moved slightly forward, looking at the stiff body of Queen Medusa in front of him, and softly said, "Was I right, Your Majesty the Queen? Your Excellency is indeed worthy of being a Do Huang expert. It seems you quickly discovered my energy clone." Queen Medusa narrowed her long eyes and chuckled, her demeanor composed, without a trace of panic. "This means Her Majesty the Queen's true form cannot be disturbed now. If not, you wouldn't let us act so recklessly." "Yes, that's right, this is indeed the opportunity." The black-robed man smiled. His palms suddenly trembled, and a fierce chi surge erupted from his body, powerfully blasting onto Queen Medusa's back. A dull thud immediately sounded, and the beautiful Queen Medusa suspended in the air instantly transformed into a wisp of light purple smoke, slowly dissipating into the air. It has finally begun. Seeing the black-robed man's flawless move in the sky, Xiaoyan exhaled lightly, a bright smile on his face. The moment the black-robed man dispelled Queen Medusa's energy clone, a wave of ferocity appeared simultaneously on the faces of Yumi and Mo Ba Si. They turned their heads toward the countless guards on the city wall and roared, "Kill all those humans." Hearing Mo Ba Si's command, a great roar of angry response immediately rose from the city wall. Countless snake people gripped their venomous spears, quickly took 2 or 3 steps back, then suddenly lunged forward. The venomous spears in their hands shot out. Instantly, a dark, dense rain of venomous spears appeared in the sky, shooting towards the group of the black-robed men and Gu He not far away. The sharp sound of the wind being torn apart made the listeners' ears buzz slightly. The black-robed men calmly watched the astonishing momentum of the venomous spear rain in the sky. His figure didn't move an inch. His flowing sleeve just lightly waved. Instantly, a massive blue chi tornado abruptly appeared suspended in front of him. This blue chi tornado spun rapidly, causing even the yellow sand on the ground to be continuously churned up and sucked into it. Looking at the increasingly colossal chi tornado, the black-robed man waved his hand casually, as if shooing a mosquito. Instantly, the violent blue chi tornado suddenly shot out, causing the sky-filling, ground-covering rain of venomous spears to be scattered everywhere by the frantic suction force of the vortex. Occasionally, venomous spears managed to penetrate the vortex, but they could hardly pose any threat to Gu He and the others behind. The eyes beneath the black robe stared at the relentless waves of venomous spears being easily blocked by the casually created vortex. He turned slightly, looked at the waiting Gu He and his companions, and said indifferently, "Go in. Quickly. Queen Medusa is currently at a critical moment. She is extremely weak right now. If you want to obtain the heavenly flame, this is your only chance." Hearing this, Gu He frowned slightly, pondered for a moment, then nodded with a serious expression. He wasn't the kind of person who was soft-hearted or sentimental. When the moment called for decisive action, he would absolutely not miss a rare opportunity due to tiresome notions of righteousness. Xianxia, Fengli, Xianxia, you all help to stop Mo Ba Si and the others. I will enter the city center to search for the heavenly flame. Gu He suddenly waved his hand and said in a deep voice. He, if you say so, then let's have a good fight. After all, you're the big boss, the heavier our injuries, the higher the remuneration will be. Xianxia grinned broadly and said. Hearing this, Gu He was somewhat dumbfounded and exasperated. His body trembled slightly, and 2 large dou qi wings slowly appeared on his back. He tapped his foot in the air, and his body shot toward the city. Stop him. Seeing Gu He spread his wings and fly into the city, Mo Ba Si and Yumi on the city wall rushed out like lightning, their cold faces determined to block him. He, your opponents are us. Fierce chi surges tore through the air, fiercely rushing toward and intercepting Yumi and Mo Ba Si. The chi attacks quickly arrived, and Xianxia and Fengli swiftly blocked in front of Yumi and Mo Ba Si. Medusa Royal Guards, stop him. Looking at Gu He flying into the city with spread wings, Yumi's face was cold. She turned back and shouted toward the city wall. Understood. A cold, uniform voice rose. Immediately, over 10 light figures, using the height of the city wall, intercepted Gu He like lightning. Kill him. Over 10 snake people in slightly bizarre uniforms, their eyes as cold as venomous snakes, stared intently at Gu He. With a cold shout, the figures of the dozen people surged out almost simultaneously. Multiple fierce chi surges were released. As they flew through the air, they began to merge with each other, and with this peculiar chi merging, the energy contained within surged many times over. Gu He looked at the combined assault of the over 10 snake people with an indifferent expression. He only glanced briefly and immediately discerned their strength, 2 Dou Ling and 10 great Dou masters. This level, even if they could use their bizarre combined strike technique to enhance their attack power, was still far too weak for Gu He. He clenched his hand, and a light blue flame instantly covered his entire body. The wings on his back vibrated slightly, and his hands quickly formed a seal, then he shouted softly. Blue flame soaring heaven. Following the shout, a light blue flame abruptly appeared in front of Gu He. With a sweep of his hand, the sky-filling flame shot toward the 10 snake people. The combined chi attack of the 10 snake people immediately turned into nothingness under the light blue flame. His wings vibrated slightly, and his figure flashed through the defense line of the 10 snake people. In the process, his hands pushed out close to his body, and a sudden chi surge erupted. Instantly, all 10 snake people coughed up blood. After quickly repelling the crowd blocking the way, Gu He was about to continue heading into the city when a fierce chi surge appeared, causing his expression to change slightly. The fierce chi shot up from below. His wings immediately flapped hard, and his body rapidly retreated, barely managing to narrowly avoid a flying venomous spear. Captain of the Medusa Royal Guards, Hoa Xa Ni. A slender female figure shot into the sky and shouted coldly. A Dou Wang. The snake people race truly has quite a few strong experts. Gu He sighed helplessly in his heart as he sensed the strength of the woman who appeared before him. The woman opposite him seemingly had no intention of conversing with Gu He. She held a sharp venomous spear in one hand, and her snake tail whipped through the air, immediately charging toward Gu He with an immensely fierce chi surge. However, just as Gu He prepared to move forward to meet the challenge, the black-robed man suddenly flashed into view and said indifferently, "Leave her to me. You go and seize the heavenly flame. We don't have much time left. Once Queen Medusa successfully evolves, I think we'll only have the option of fleeing far away." Understood. Seeing the black-robed man suddenly appear in front of him, Gu He quickly nodded. After agreeing, he immediately flashed into the city, amidst Hoa Xa Ni's furious gaze. While the city wall was in utter chaos, a figure quietly slipped in from outside the wall, unnoticed by anyone. Along the way, he dealt with a few snake people he encountered by chance. Upon entering the vast space of the city, the purple cloud wings fluttered slightly. Xiaoyan quickly darted away, asking in a low voice within his heart, "Teacher, how is it? Can you sense the location of the heavenly flame?" Queen Medusa is very cunning. I don't know what method she used, but she divided the heavenly flame's aura into 4 parts. The 4 parts of the aura are left on the ground, corresponding to the 4 directions of this city. Therefore, if you search everywhere, it will likely waste a lot of time. Yao Lao chuckled. Alas, this cunning woman. So what should we do now? Hearing this, Xiaoyan frowned slightly and asked with a bitter smile. Haha, don't worry. Although her methods are somewhat advanced, I have been close to the heavenly flame for many years, after all. I can still distinguish a slight difference between them. Yao Lao's voice carried a faint hint of smugness. Which direction? Xiaoyan sighed heavily in his heart and asked urgently. East. Yao Lao quickly replied. Heh, then Guhi went the wrong way. Hearing this, Xiaoyan immediately grinned, his expression looking somewhat gloating, because he had clearly seen Guhi flying towards the north earlier. Xiaoyan's foot quickly tapped in one spot. He skillfully dodged a volley of flying venomous spears, looked down at the chaotic city streets, and strongly flapped his purple cloud wings, flying towards the east side of the city. After carefully and slowly flying for nearly 10 minutes, a massive divine palace slowly appeared in his sight. This is the place. Be careful. The heavenly flame's aura is getting stronger. When he saw the divine palace, Yao Lao's warning voice sounded in his heart again. Yes. Xiaoyan nodded slightly. His flying speed gradually slowed down. He quickly entered a shadowy spot, narrowing his eyes at the heavily guarded defense outside the divine palace. Don't waste time. Hurry up. If Queen Medusa successfully evolves, even I won't be able to handle her then. At that point, we'll only be able to flee for our lives. Yao Lao said in a deep voice. Okay. Nodding quickly, Xiaoyan quietly moved toward the divine palace. With Yao Lao's help in concealing his aura, he slipped like smoke into a corridor, then ran desperately toward the location Yao Lao pointed out. With Yao Lao's powerful soul perception, Xiaoyan could always narrowly avoid the patrol teams just in time before encountering them. After nearly 10 minutes of such dangerous evasion, the area in front of him suddenly became bright. A small, clear, silver lake appeared in his sight. In the center of the silver lake, a person was standing. The water around him rippled slightly, and there was no pathway leading to that spot. Standing on the bank of the silver lake, Xiaoyan could vaguely see the clear bottom of the lake. He licked his lips. His wings on his back fluttered slightly, moving his body to about a foot or less from the lakeside, when a powerful, strange energy abruptly pulled his body toward the lake water. The moment his body was about to touch the water, Xiaoyan's heart suddenly constricted sharply. A trace of unease quickly appeared. Reflexively, he took out a jade ruler from his storage ring. He then lightly tapped his toes on it. And using this thrust, his body, which was almost skimming the surface of the lake, shot rapidly backward. Standing fearfully by the silver lakeside, Xiaoyan turned his head to look at the jade ruler, which had instantly been corroded into nothingness. He couldn't help but swallow hard and curse. Be careful. There is no formation on the lake surface, but anything flying over will be powerfully sucked into the silver lake. Moreover, there is clearly a deadly poison in this silver lake. Just a slight touch, and I'm afraid even a Douwang expert would be in trouble. Yao Lao's voice sounded in his heart. Damn it. Xiaoyan cursed under his breath, clenching his fists angrily. After a long while, he exhaled deeply and said with a bitter smile, "What now? There's no other way. We can only use the final method, similar to entering the magma last time. I will use the heavenly flame to envelop you. You must rush to that small island at maximum speed. Otherwise, I'm afraid the deadly poison will corrode away all your bones." Yao Lao pondered slightly, then said helplessly. "Then hurry up. Time is precious." Xiaoyan rubbed his hands excitedly and urged. Yao Lao hummed softly. A white-silver flame slowly emanated from his body, and in just a moment, it completely enveloped Xiaoyan's entire body. Damn it, I'm staking everything. Standing by the silver lake, Xiaoyan looked at the clear water, gritted his teeth fiercely, then closed his eyes, and with a splash, he leaped into the lake. Into the transparent lake water. The body darted like a fish. Xiaoyan's gaze focused on the dense pale white flame outside his body, and he couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. At this moment, under the strange high temperature of the bone-chilling flame, the surrounding lake water seemed to boil. While continuously enveloping the white flame sphere, waves of dark purple liquid, hard for the naked eye to detect, slowly appeared. However, just as these dark purple liquids were about to touch the dense white flame barrier, they were frozen by the bone-chilling flame into extremely tiny ice shards, which then slowly fell into the bottom of the lake. Watching the small purple ice shards continuously appear around him, Xiaoyan's scalp felt numb. He hadn't expected this seemingly ordinary lake to secretly conceal such deadly poison. Conserve time. The toxicity of this poisonous fluid is extremely potent. Although the heavenly flame is protecting you and preventing it from invading your body, it is consuming a significant amount of my soul power. Just as Xiaoyan was sighing in fear, Yao Lao's deep voice suddenly sounded in his heart. Yes. Xiaoyan nodded hurriedly. His legs kicked out, his head emerged from the water, and he looked at the island in the center of the lake, letting out a light breath. Then, his hands quickly paddled, and his body, dragging a streak of silver water, slowly approached the middle of the lake. He swam in a straight line, getting close to the small island in the center of the lake. Just as Xiaoyan was about to sigh in relief, the previously calm lake water suddenly erupted with a roar, sending foam and water into the sky. The unexpected sight made Xiaoyan's heart tense. He raised his head, staring fixedly at the point where the foam erupted. The next moment, his pupils suddenly contracted. Where the foam erupted, a giant serpent with green scales all over its body and a triangular head suddenly shot up from the bottom of the lake. It then opened its ferocious wide mouth and viciously lunged at Xiaoyan. A savage and brutal intent flashed in its rhomboid eyes. Damn it! This small lake is truly abnormal, isn't it? Under the savage attack of the strange serpent, Xiaoyan cursed angrily. He powerfully slapped the water surface with his palm, instantly sending water splashing everywhere. Borrowing this force, Xiaoyan's body completely left the water surface. He leaned his body slightly until it was almost parallel to the lake surface, and then his toes lightly touched the rushing waves like lightning. Suddenly, Xiaoyan's body shot forward with a thump, just like a cannonball. Thump, thump, thump. His body fiercely rushed towards the island. Behind him, several fierce impact sounds rang out. This was the commotion created by the giant serpent after its attack failed. Xiaoyan didn't pay too much attention to the wind-infused qi surging behind him. He used the momentum of the rush to continuously evade multiple attacks from the giant serpent. Finally, when he was less than 10 meters from the small island, he glanced back out of the corner of his eye and saw the serpent's large, ferocious mouth wide open, chasing him directly through the water. He let out a faint cold laugh, and Xiaoyan's finger flicked his storage ring. A wooden board shot out onto the water surface. Just before it was completely corroded by the poisonous fluid in the lake, Xiaoyan's toes tapped the board. His body sank slightly, then powerfully shot out again. In an instant, he finally entered the small island's perimeter. His body spun in the air, his legs bent slightly, and his hands gently pressed onto the ground, landing steadily. Placing his feet on the small island, Xiaoyan turned his head and glanced back. He noticed that the ferocious giant serpent seemed somewhat apprehensive and didn't dare to advance further once he entered the 10-meter radius around the small island. It furiously whipped its tail outside the island, flicking its bright red tongue, and glared viciously at Xiaoyan for a long while before sinking helplessly into the bottom of the lake. Watching the lake surface slowly regain its tranquility, Xiaoyan finally let out a sigh of relief. He turned around to look at the small island. The area of the island wasn't very large. It was surrounded by lush green bamboo forests and some flowers and plants, looking vibrant and somewhat beautiful. The aura of the heavenly flame. Taking a deep breath of the air, this close proximity allowed even Xiaoyan to sense the existence of the heavenly flame hidden within the island. A scorching flame appeared in his dark eyes. Clenching his fist tightly, Xiaoyan secretly vowed that no matter what, he had to seize the heavenly flame this time, for he had put too much effort and struggle into it. The dense pale white flame on his body slowly dissipated. Yao Lao's voice rang out again, "Be careful. Queen Medusa is inside. However, she currently has no mind to pay attention to you. I will perfectly conceal your aura. So proceed according to the circumstances." "Yes." Nodding slightly, Xiaoyan's breathing gradually stabilized. He stood on the lakeside for a long time before gently stepping forward, slowly advancing into the bamboo forest. Walking on the small path in the bamboo forest, the air was quiet. Apart from the extremely faint sound of Xiaoyan's footsteps on the grass and plants, there was no other noise. Although Yao Lao no longer spoke to guide him at this moment, Xiaoyan could still find the correct path by the strange, faint streams of information transmitted through the air. He walked neither quickly nor slowly through several small paths. Then, the view in front of him gradually brightened. At the end of the path, Xiaoyan's body suddenly crouched down, quickly concealing himself behind the nearest cluster of grass and bushes. His gaze pierced through the gaps in the leaves, looking into a clearing in the center of the island. This was a circular, empty area. The surrounding bamboo and vegetation had been cleared. There was a row of smooth, small stones placed there, and inside those stones was a vacant area that dipped into a small pool containing a transparent liquid. White mist hovered over the surface of the liquid. Even standing quite far away, Xiaoyan could feel the intense cold temperature emanating from it. Ice Spirit Cold Spring. Xiaoyan stared fixedly at the transparent liquid. After a long while, he inhaled sharply. He had spent so much effort just to trade for a small bottle of ice spirit cold spring from Gubi, yet here was an entire small pool filled with it. TSK, this expenditure was truly terrifyingly grand. Slowly suppressing the shock in his heart, Xiaoyan's gaze gradually moved, finally settling on an exquisitely carved lotus flower placed in the center of the small pool. Resting upon this lotus flower was a cluster of green flame, slowly rising. Looking at this cluster of green flame, Xiaoyan's pupils suddenly contracted like threads. An undisguised, fervent desire appeared in his dark eyes and on his delicate youthful face. This cluster of green flame was extremely sentient. Sometimes it would rise slightly, sometimes condense into the shape of a lotus, and sometimes condense into the shape of a small green fire snake, continuously moving above the lotus flower, looking gentle and extremely lovely. Xiaoyan, hidden among the plants, stared intently at the continuously shape-shifting green flame, his mouth twitching uncontrollably. His hands, pressed against the ground, were fiercely dug into the mud beneath him due to his excitement. "I finally found you." Staring fixedly at the cluster of green flame, Xiaoyan tightly pursed his lips. Although he had never seen the appearance of the green lotus core flame, having once cultivated on the green lotus, he could vaguely feel a familiar sensation from the cluster of green flame, similar to the green lotus itself. After expending years of hard work and effort, this was the first time Xiaoyan had seen a heavenly flame this close, excluding Yao Lao's heavenly flame. Because Yao Lao controlled the bone-chilling flame, it was fundamentally difficult for Xiaoyan to sense the terror and savagery of a heavenly flame. The crystal lotus pedestal was clearly not an ordinary object. Every time the flame cluster was about to burst out of its range, a faint circle of white radiance abruptly appeared, pushing the flame back in. Xiaoyan's gaze carefully swept across the pool, and he discovered that every time the heavenly flame touched the radiance, the ice spirit cold spring in the pool reduced by a small amount. Clearly, the crystal lotus pedestal was using the power of the ice spirit cold spring to contain the green flame cluster. Xiaoyan's gaze swept past the small pool and moved to the left, revealing a beauty whose stunning features could deeply imprint themselves on one's mind. Xiaoyan's already weak breath was unconsciously suppressed even further. Facing this Do Huang level super expert, a huge stone seemed to press down on Xiaoyan's heart, causing extreme pressure. At this moment, Queen Medusa was no different from the energy body that appeared outside the city. Earlier, a body covered in luxurious purple silk robes, which enveloped her graceful figure. Her voluptuous figure was enchantingly alluring, and her captivating eyes seemed to shift with an allure that could almost tear out the sight of every man. A section of a purple snake tail was exposed beneath the purple robe, swaying lazily, creating an extraordinary and untamed allure. Queen Medusa's beautiful eyes were currently fixed intently on the flame cluster lying in the small pool. Under the reflected light, dancing flames also flickered in her pale purple pupils. "It is time." Whispering softly, a rare trace of hesitation appeared on Queen Medusa's beautiful face. The next moment, the hesitation turned into resolve. Her snow-white wrists, exposed beneath the purple robe, slowly formed several seals in front of her body. As the seals changed in Queen Medusa's hand, the crystal lotus pedestal suddenly trembled violently. The circle of light above it gradually disappeared. The moment the light disappeared, the green flame lost its restraint and suddenly flared up fiercely, instantly transforming into a torrential cluster of flame. Under this flame cluster, the ice spirit cold spring beneath the small pool visibly evaporated at a speed the naked eye could follow. Ignoring the surrounding withered bamboo that was being roasted until it smoked, Queen Medusa's teeth lightly bit her red lips. Her jade-like hand slowly untied the knot of her silk robe. Instantly, a perfect jade-like body, like a masterpiece of heaven, was thus completely exposed, naked in the bamboo forest. In the small green bamboo forest, the soft, perfect, and luscious white body was so captivating it could make a person's mouth feel dry. Her face was enchanting, and inadvertently revealed a stunning, bewitching beauty. Her neck was long and pale white, exposing an elegant curve. The gaze slowly moved down, a pair of full, high breasts. Perhaps due to the high temperature, a drop of water appeared on her neck, then slid straight down, passing over her full, smooth breasts, finally drawing a slightly lewd curve as it flowed downwards. Her slender abdomen seemed slightly fragile, yet within that apparent slimness, it revealed a sense of suppleness. It was flat and soft, without an ounce of excess flesh. A single glance made one feel an uncontrollable impulse to reach out and touch it. Below that slender waist was a purple snake tail, full of untamed spirit. The snake tail swayed slightly, undoubtedly exhibiting an unusual charm. In this small bamboo forest, this soft body, which countless men would covet, was thus revealed naked, a sight for anyone lucky enough to see. In the bushes, Xiaoyan watched the naked, soft body that could drive men mad, his eyes wide with astonishment. An obvious perverse fire suddenly surged up from his abdomen, making his face flush red. After a long while, he gritted his teeth and circulated his dou qi, suppressing the agitated perverse fire within his body. "This woman, she's truly terrifying." Raising his head again, Xiaoyan only dared to stare fixedly at the heavenly flame burning in the air, no longer daring to look at that beautiful, captivating soft body, fearing that if he was not careful, he would expose himself. Queen Medusa is born with a kind of enchanting power. For men, this enchanting power is the most potent aphrodisiac. Of course, with her current strength, this captivating power has reached a realm where it can be naturally released or retracted. Alas, but when she is naked like this, that enchanting power is naturally released. Right, kid? Be careful. Above the character for lust is the character for blade. Yao Lao's voice said gravely. Ah. Hearing Yao Lao's sudden words, Xiaoyan could only chuckle awkwardly and nod bashfully. "Teacher, when do we make our move?" The scorching temperature all around made Xiaoyan wipe away sweat, and he asked in his heart. "Wait a little longer." Although she has placed all her attention on the heavenly flame right now, if she discovers your whereabouts, she will definitely deal with you, a small fry, first. Although I can take you and flee, what about the heavenly flame? Then we continue to wait. Hearing this, the corner of Xiaoyan's mouth twitched, and he fell silent again, staring unblinkingly at the clearing in the distance. The purple silk robe casually dropped to the ground. Queen Medusa slowly took a step forward, her beautiful, hazy eyes fixed intently on the cluster of green flame in the air. Biting her red lips, she murmured softly. "If I rely on conventional cultivation methods, who knows when I will be able to touch the threshold of Dou Zone. Therefore, if I want to advance to Dou Zone as quickly as possible, I only have this path left." Her slender jade hand gently clenched. Queen Medusa bowed slightly towards the heavenly flame in the air, then suddenly slowly raised her head, looking at the violently Fluctuating energy at the city wall. A hint of cold intent flashed in her beautiful eyes. She gently brushed the hair from her forehead with a finger and said indifferently, "If the evolution succeeds, every human here today must forever remain in this desert." Having spoken these somewhat cold words, Queen Medusa used her small arm to tear off the purple hair tie. Instantly, her soft, pitch-black hair fell straight down. She lightly shook her head, and the strands of hair swayed with the casual movement, further enhancing Queen Medusa's alluring charm. Her hands slightly clasped together, Queen Medusa's beautiful eyes were half closed. Her jade hands continuously formed bizarre seals. The energy in the bamboo forest suddenly began to fluctuate violently. Xianxia, hidden in the woods, discovered this change. His heart instantly jumped. He slightly crouched his body, preparing to cope with any sudden situation. What exactly is she planning to do? The fluctuations in the bamboo forest grew increasingly intense. Eventually, a huge energy vortex seemed to vaguely form over the small island. Watching this change, Xianxia was astonished and exclaimed in his heart, I'm not very clear either. Queen Medusa's evolution is somewhat mysterious. I've only heard about it before and have never seen it with my own eyes. However, it seems that the success rate of this evolution path is not high. Yes, in other words, if she succeeds in evolving, what she will eventually turn into, no one can clearly know. It's almost random. Yao Lao said with a bitter laugh, one thing can be confirmed, it will have something to do with snakes, somehow. Hearing Yao Lao's somewhat rambling words, Xianxia shook his head and said nothing. He was about to ask another question but fell silent, his eyes fixed intently on Queen Medusa's body, which was now enveloped in a dense circle of light. The light continuously expanded. A moment later, a sound resembling a lion's roar, yet also somewhat like a tiger's roar, vaguely transmitted from within the light. Not long after this sound rang out, the dazzling light suddenly swelled. Under the strong intensity of the dazzling light, Xianxia reflexively closed his eyes. After a moment, he opened them again, his face full of shock, and discovered a massive purple serpent, dozens of meters long, floating in the sky above the small island. The purple serpent's body was long and powerful, vaguely possessing a sense of elegance. Its pupils were also pale purple, not at all like the ferocious serpent Xianxia had encountered in the lake earlier, but it revealed a hint of calmness and indifference. The purple giant serpent slowly writhed its body in the air. Its large head slightly turned towards the chaotic city wall, and a hint of cold light flashed in its pale purple eyes. In the sky above the city wall, the black-robed man hovered, faintly glancing at the somewhat disheveled Hoa Xa opposite him. In an instant, as if sensing something abnormal, she suddenly turned her head, her gaze fixed intently on the corner of the city erupting with purple light. The pupils beneath the black robe narrowed, and she muttered softly, "Has the evolution begun? Damn human, wait until Her Majesty the Queen succeeds in her evolution, and not one of you will escape." Wiping away a trace of blood that appeared at the corner of her mouth, Hoa Xa said coldly, "If the evolution fails, she will naturally vanish from this world without us having to lift a finger." Hoa Xa's threat didn't make the black-robed man angry in the slightest. Her temperament seemed inherently cold and aloof, and very few things could make her show alarm. A person like her was like a white cloud in the sky, seemingly lazy and indifferent, yet possessing the wisdom and composure to observe all things from above. Furthermore, you should also understand that this kind of evolution is non-standard. If it succeeds, no one knows what form she will ultimately take, the black-robed man said softly. Her Majesty the Queen will definitely succeed. Hoa Xa's expression changed, and she roared. Tapping her foot on the city wall, her dou qi surged, and she lunged towards the black-robed man. Actually, I also want to see the result of Queen Medusa's successful evolution. The black-robed man calmly watched the furious Hoa Xa charging at her. She smiled slightly and shook her head. Waving both hands, over 10 massive blue wind blades, each dozens of meters long, shot out. Is this Queen Medusa's true form? Looking at the massive purple serpent in the sky, Xianxia couldn't help but murmur softly. The snake people race is different from humans. After they transform, they use a secret method to instill their soul into the body of a magical beast. Serpent. As their age and strength increase, this fusion of soul and serpent form magical beast gradually harmonizes with them, eventually becoming indistinguishable. After the serpent form soul fusion, when facing a formidable enemy, they can summon this kind of true form. At that time, their strength will increase significantly. This is the snake people's final trump card. Yao Lao explained within Xiaoyan's heart. I see. Xiaoyan nodded slightly, raised his head, and rubbed his chin, muttering, what is she preparing to do now? She's not planning to swallow the heavenly flame in one go, is she? If she really swallows it, what should I do? This. Hearing Xiaoyan's question, Yao Lao paused, then said helplessly, I'm not exactly sure. Actually, I don't think she has the ability to evolve. The destructive power of the heavenly flame is no joke. Although she is a Do Huang expert, enduring the heavenly flame will be extremely difficult. Xiaoyan let out a light breath and said with a bitter smile, we still have to wait and see. If I rush in now, I'm afraid I'll be burned into nothingness by the savage green lotus core flame. Exactly, be careful. If any problem arises, immediately prepare to flee for your life. Both the heavenly flame and Queen Medusa are extremely dangerous entities. Yao Lao reminded him. Nodding with a bitter smile, Xiaoyan obediently heightened his vigilance significantly. His eyes stared fixedly at the massive purple serpent in the air, not even blinking. The huge body writhed. In the air, dense purple light poured out from the serpent's body, eventually enveloping almost the entire divine palace within it. She is setting up an energy barrier. She must be afraid of Guhi interfering. It seems this kind of evolution truly requires a quiet environment. She's really unlucky to have encountered that fellow today. Yao Lao chuckled. That's right, but if they hadn't caused a disturbance, we wouldn't have had a chance to sneak in. Xiaoyan nodded with a smile. His gaze focused on the air. The next moment, his face suddenly became solemn, and he said in a deep voice, she's starting. As soon as Xiaoyan finished speaking, the purple serpent in the sky, after circling a few times, forcefully emitted a crisp hiss, then turned its head and plunged towards the cluster of green flame. This woman is insane, daring to clash head-on with a heavenly flame. Seeing the purple serpent's action, Xiaoyan immediately inhaled sharply, and his figure hastily retreated backward. Under Xiaoyan's fixed gaze, the massive purple serpent plunged down in that instant, plunging into the cluster of green flame without the slightest hesitation. Right after the purple serpent entered the heavenly flame, Queen Medusa's shrill, mournful shriek rang out, instantly making one's scalp tingle. Hearing Queen Medusa's shrill, mournful scream coming from within the heavenly flame, Xiaoyan's entire body shivered with cold. His gaze pierced through the bamboo forest in front of him, looking up at the cluster of green flame in the air. Inside, the massive purple serpent's body was violently writhing. Xiaoyan could clearly see the serpent scales on the purple serpent's body. Not long after entering the heavenly flame, they began to rapidly distort. One by one, they were burned black by the heavenly flame, falling helplessly from the purple serpent's body. After the serpent scales fell off, crimson fresh blood began to pour out. However, the moment this fresh blood appeared, it was incinerated into nothingness by the terrifying temperature of the heavenly flame, ultimately creating extremely glaring patterns of scorched blood on the purple serpent's body. CHH. Standing on the small island, Xiaoyan could even hear the sizzling sound emanating from within the heavenly flame. Because the fresh blood was quickly flowing away, the massive body of the purple serpent was continuously shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was hard to imagine the intense pain Queen Medusa must be enduring now, as an arrogant and powerful great ruler was forced to emit such a shrill, frantic, and mournful shriek. Under the heavenly flames burning, not only was the body in pain, but even the soul could not escape the flames scorching. This kind of pain was truly terrifying. Standing far away on a rock, staring intently at the flame cluster, Xiaoyan's face was slightly pale. Queen Medusa's shrill, mournful scream, which could almost shock one's soul, truly shook him. He couldn't help but admit that this woman was somewhat stubborn and insane. because the commotion caused by Queen Medusa was too great, her mournful shriek echoed across almost half the city. Immediately, countless snake people experts shot into the air like lightning, looking with panic at the area where the purple light erupted. Some who tried to rush over were forcefully stopped outside by the purple light barrier, only able to stand far away, watching the purple serpent violently burning inside the green flame with endless worry. In the sky, a streak of light quickly rushed towards the purple barrier. After a moment, Gu He, wearing a solemn expression, stopped outside the purple barrier. Queen Medusa has begun her evolution. Staring fixedly at the green flame far away in the divine palace, Gu He said softly. He unconsciously clenched his hands, then smiled bitterly. And said, "Now, can we only wait for the final result?" This. Teacher, what now? Turning his head to look at the figures all around who were alarmed and rushing over, Xiaoyan frowned slightly. He looked at the cluster of green flame that seemed to distort the space, and he asked in his heart. Alas, what can we do? This kind of green lotus core flame has been agitated by Queen Medusa and become savage. Anything that gets close to its range will be burned into nothingness. Yao Lao said helplessly. Hearing this, Xiaoyan's gaze swept towards the area beneath the green flame. He discovered that the small pool, which was originally full of ice spirit cold spring, had now become a black, empty area. Looking closely, the pit must have been over 10 meters deep. Moreover, the bamboo forest surrounding the heavenly flame had instantly turned into ashes. A light breeze blew, making a large area of the bamboo forest as flat as the ground. What terrifying destructive power! Wiping away sweat from his face, feeling the surrounding air growing increasingly scorching, Xiaoyan's body trembled slightly. He manifested the purple fire combat clothes outside his body, and then quickly retreated a few steps. Only then did he feel a little better. Inside the green flame, Queen Medusa's shrill, mournful screams gradually weakened after about half an hour. At this moment, perhaps due to the depletion of her strength, the massive body of the purple serpent had almost stopped writhing. Its body, originally covered in beautiful purple scales, was now completely scorched black. Its length, which was dozens of meters, had been burned down to only 2 or 3 meters. It was hard to imagine exactly how much fresh blood had been incinerated by the heavenly flame's scorching. Standing outside the purple barrier, the increasingly numerous snake people watched the continuously rising purple flame with blank stares. In that one moment, a wave of mournful grief enveloped this most sacred city of the snake people race, coinciding with Queen Medusa's fading scream. Inside the green flame, Queen Medusa's body lay still and motionless. The green lotus core flame continuously burned her body casually. A faint smell of scorched flesh slowly emanated outwards. She failed. Outside the purple barrier, the black-robed man suddenly appeared beside Gu He. Looking at Queen Medusa's motionless body inside the heavenly flame, she inexplicably let out a sigh, and became slightly silent, a hint of regret present. Although her personality was similarly aloof and arrogant, she understood the respect due to someone who possessed the courage of a true ruler to allow the heavenly flame to burn their body for this kind of evolution. Sigh. Gu He, standing on the side, also let out a soft breath. Had Queen Medusa, who had once given the high-level experts of the Jiama Empire such a headache, fallen in this manner? It was truly somewhat lamentable. The entire city, along with Queen Medusa's fading scream, gradually fell into a deadly silence. A moment later, eyes full of hatred turned towards Gu He and the black-robed men in the air. Ignoring the countless hateful gazes, the black-robed men stared indifferently at the green flame in the distance. In just a moment, the black-robed man suddenly frowned, raised her head to look at the sky, which had abruptly become much darker, and slightly paused. A trace of solemnity mixed in with her cold voice. Something's not right. What's wrong? Hearing this, Gu He's expression also tensed up, and he asked quickly. The heaven and earth energy suddenly became violent. The black-robed man looked at the sky and said softly. Seeing this, Gu He also quickly raised his head, looking towards the sky. His face instantly changed. He saw that the previously azure sky had suddenly become much darker. Clusters of dark clouds, appearing from nowhere, slowly covered the entire sky. The sudden change in situation surprised everyone. They looked up at the strange phenomenon in the sky, their expressions full of confusion. Boom! A huge thunderclap suddenly erupted from within the dark clouds. Lightning bolts flew chaotically within, resembling long silver serpents. What is happening? Sensing the savage energy hidden within the dark clouds, Guhi swallowed a mouthful of saliva and asked with difficulty. The black-robed man stared fixedly at the dark clouds in the sky and said in a deep voice, "I once read an ancient book. It recorded that some magical beasts from ancient legends, when born or advancing in rank, would cause strange phenomena in the heaven and earth due to the uncontrollable energy within their bodies. However, the rank of these legendary magical beasts is extremely powerful. Some of them are incredibly strong, even comparable to human experts of the Dou Zong and Douxing level. On the Dou Qi continent now, these kinds of legendary magical beasts seem to be rarely seen. Looking at the current situation, it is most likely triggered by Queen Medusa. Are you saying she succeeded in her evolution?" Guhi's pupils contracted slightly, and he said with a hint of shock, "I can't be sure." The black-robed man shook her head and said softly, "Do we have to wait?" Guhi frowned nervously and asked with hesitation, "We must wait a little longer. Even if she succeeded in her evolution, having been burned by the heavenly flame for so long, she must have suffered significant energy loss. She would have to find a quiet place to recuperate, which would be the wisest decision." The black-robed man shook her head slightly and pondered. "Then, that's fine. Look again." Hearing this, Guhi hesitated for a moment and nodded. Just as he was about to raise his head, an immense thunderclap rang out from the dark clouds above his head. In that instant, the entire world seemed to brighten. A massive silver lightning bolt shot down from the cloud layer, finally penetrating the purple barrier, and thus struck into the cluster of green flame. The lightning came fast and left even faster. The rumbling, exploding sound of thunder had not completely dissipated in everyone's ears when the dark clouds in the sky began to retreat rapidly. The next moment, the scorching light once again covered the city. As the muffled sound in their ears gradually faded, countless people quickly turned their gaze towards the purple barrier. However, after the lightning strike, a faint green mist began to escape from the small island, simultaneously obscuring everyone's vision. The green mist is created by the collision between the lightning and the heavenly flame. Soul power cannot penetrate it. The situation inside has been completely isolated. Guhi used his soul perception to sweep the outside of the barrier. He shook his head and frowned. "Wait for it to disperse," the black-robed man said calmly. Guhi nodded, but the Dou Qi within his body also began to slowly circulate, ready to retreat at any moment. When the lightning struck from the sky, Xiaoyan was still hiding behind a giant rock. Unexpectedly, under the immense impact pressure of the lightning, the giant rock was shattered into dust. If Yao Lao hadn't intervened at the crucial moment to help him, Xiaoyan would have been struck dead on the spot by that force. What terrifying lightning! Standing up from the ground, Xiaoyan stared blankly at the small island, unable to help but inhale sharply. What's the situation inside? Brushing off the dust on his body, Xiaoyan looked at the thick green mist surrounding the island, frowning slightly. He then slowly walked into it. As he slowly walked into the center of the small island, the green flame in the air reappeared. However, the green flame now had returned to its small, fist-sized form from before, quietly hovering in the air, continuously shifting shapes. Xiaoyan's gaze moved down from the heavenly flame. On the ground, the massive purple serpent's body lay still and silent, completely black. Its body was cold. It was the previous purple serpent. Did she fail? Looking at the serious injuries on the giant serpent's body, its burned exterior somewhat horrific, Xiaoyan sighed lightly. Had a generation of Dou Huang experts vanished into thin air just like that? Alas, let's go collect the heavenly flame. Gently shaking his head, Xiaoyan lightly stepped over the giant serpent's corpse, walked to the spot beneath the heavenly flame, and was about to ask Yao Lao how to proceed when a faint friction Sound suddenly rang out from behind him. Hearing the unexpected sound, Xiaoyan's body suddenly trembled. He slowly turned his head, looking toward the source of the sound. Instantly, his pupils suddenly contracted. "Why are you looking so much?" Under Xiaoyan's observation, on the rigid, charred giant serpent's corpse on the ground, the layer of charred skin suddenly began to slowly peel off. The speed of peeling gradually quickened. Until, at the very end, Xiaoyan could faintly see that inside the giant serpent's body, something was vaguely trying to break free from the shell. Gulp. Seeing this somewhat miraculous scene, the hair all over Xiaoyan's body slightly stood up. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva, slowly turned around, his eyes fixed on the giant serpent that was continuously peeling off its charred skin. Carefully and gently retreated a few steps, and hurriedly asked in his heart, "Teacher, what is going on?" A breath has started to emerge inside the serpent's body again. In Yao Lao's voice, there was now a few extra parts of solemnity. She succeeded in her evolution. His pupils slightly contracted, Xiaoyan asked with difficulty in his voice. "It seems so, be careful." Yao Lao was also somewhat unclear about what was happening, so his reply was slightly vague. Hearing this, Xiaoyan's heart sank. In the next instant, he immediately tilted his head to look at the blue flame in the air, quickly deciding and saying, "Teacher, how do I collect that heavenly flame? Hurry up, there's no more time. Waiting for the thing to emerge, I'm afraid we will. Careful." Before Xiaoyan could finish speaking, Yao Lao suddenly let out an urgent shout in his mind. At Yao Lao's shout, Xiaoyan's heart suddenly tensed up. More than a year of arduous training also made him maintain vigilance at any moment. Immediately, his expression slightly changed. He lightly tapped the ground with his toe, and his body quickly retreated backward. Thump, thump. Just as Xiaoyan rapidly retreated, the giant serpent's body on the ground suddenly let out an explosion. Black scales shot out in all directions, and the entire corpse turned into dust. In the instant the giant serpent's corpse turned into dust, a terrifying aura suddenly burst forth. With a speed that made people startled, it quickly enveloped the entire city. "Has Her Majesty the Queen succeeded?" Sensing this faintly familiar aura, all the snake people, high and low, throughout the city looked at each other, then their faces showed ecstatic joy. Countless cheers of triumph echoed throughout the sky, shaking the earth. In the moment this aura erupted, Gu He, outside the purple light circle, suddenly changed his expression. At the same time, his body almost uncontrollably retreated dozens of meters backward. While rapidly retreating, Gu He's face was very unsightly as he shouted loudly towards the black-robed person standing in mid-air, "Leave quickly. Queen Medusa has successfully evolved. Don't panic." Facing the direction where the terrifying aura suddenly erupted, the black-robed person still maintained her previous composure. Although others found it difficult to fully sense the unusualness in this aura, she clearly recognized that although this aura was terrifyingly powerful, it was faintly running out of strength to continue. Her intuition was not wrong. From the moment this aura erupted, just 10 seconds later, it indeed rapidly receded back into the light, like a receding tide. Along with the disappearance of the aura, the joy inside the city suddenly stopped. All the snake people looked surprised, their hearts filled with uneasiness and worry. You are reading the story at Thien Full, www.Thien Full. At the moment that aura suddenly burst out, Xiaoyan's face suddenly turned pale. His foot stomped hard on the ground, and in that instant, he retreated more than 10 meters. When the aura disappeared, it also caused a slight astonishment in Xiaoyan's heart. However, at this moment, he dared not underestimate it anymore. His eyes narrowed, staring intently at the spot where the giant serpent's corpse had exploded just moments before, with a little black ash falling into his sweat-soaked palm. As the black dust slowly fell, in a flash, a colorful light image powerfully shot out from the mist. The speed of the light image seemed to pierce through the obstruction of space, so fast that people couldn't react in time. In his black eyes, he only saw a flash of 7-colored light. Xiaoyan's face was full of shock. Before he could clearly see what the opponent was, he dared not let it make contact with his body. Damn it, the speed is too fast. Even if Xiaoyan wanted to dodge, the speed of the seven-colored light image was truly terrifyingly quick. Even the fastest speed Xiaoyan had witnessed in the magical beast mountain range was clearly far inferior when compared to this. As the Dou Qi in his body had just started to activate, the sharp sound of wind breaking, carried by the seven-colored light image, had already sounded. Right next to his ear. Thump. At this critical moment, a pale white flame suddenly burst out from around Xiaoyan's body. The searing heat scorched the surrounding air until it smoked, continuously twisting. Qi, seemingly perceiving the power of the pale white flame, the seven-colored light image that was rapidly rushing towards Xiaoyan, without any warning, immediately stopped right in front of Xiaoyan. The transition from extreme motion to extreme stillness occurred almost naturally and decisively, without any sense of awkwardness. The seven-colored light stood a few inches away from Xiaoyan's face, finally revealing its body within his line of sight. On his face, which was still showing a little panic in the heart-stopping moment from the object's sudden charge, when Xiaoyan saw the creature that appeared before him, the look of panic couldn't help but turn into surprise, even a bit of curiosity. The creature that appeared in front of Xiaoyan was a small snake, only about 2 inches long. Its whole body was covered in tiny seven-colored scales. Its pupils were pale purple, faintly giving off a sense of strangeness. An unusual fresh fragrance lingered around its body. Although it was currently only a small snake body, it exuded a sense of elegance and nobility. Although the snake's appearance was not overly ferocious, and was even somewhat beautiful, this kind of beautiful creature would probably make many women forget that they originally hated snakes. The seven-colored little snake did not have too many sharp attacking parts from head to tail. However, Xiaoyan could vaguely sense that this small body contained a terrifying power, which even a Dou Huang expert would not dare to underestimate. The small snake floated in front of Xiaoyan. In its pale purple eyes, there was no hint of murderous intent. On the contrary, it looked extremely pure and clean. Although Xiaoyan knew that this little snake was probably Queen Medusa, whose fearsome reputation shook the entire desert, transformed, his heart found it difficult to generate any intention to resist it. The seven-colored little snake slightly flicked its small tail, wide-opened its crystal-clear pale purple pupils towards Xiaoyan, and cautiously tried to move forward a bit. However, fearing the pale white flame on Xiaoyan's body, it immediately withdrew its head. Its purple eyes looked at Xiaoyan with a pitiful weakness, staring rigidly at the seemingly harmless seven-colored little snake before his eyes. Xiaoyan dared not move even half an inch. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva, stammering in his mind, "Teacher, is it Queen Medusa?" "Yes." Yao Lao nodded gloomily, letting out a soft breath, and muttered, "This seven-colored body, this slightly purple pupil, this slightly fragrant body, this heaven-reaching power. I didn't expect what Queen Medusa called evolution originally meant the evolution of the soul, breaking free from the original body, using the power of the soul to truly condense into a new body. So what kind of creature has she evolved into now?" Xiaoyan asked uneasily. "Matching Queen Medusa's soul that you witnessed before was a very large purple snake. That is a type of six-stage magical beast, the soul of the purple abyss flame snake. It is said that this type of purple abyss flame snake faintly carries a bit of the bloodline of an ancient strange beast. If the opportunity is right, if this purple abyss flame snake can activate that faint bloodline within their body, they can evolve into their ancient ancestor. Of course, this ratio is extremely, extremely low, even so low that it can be forgotten." Yao Lao said softly. "The ancient strange beast is considered capable of contending with a Dousheng expert, known as the seven-colored heaven-swallowing python. And the signs to distinguish it are this seven-colored body, this slightly purple pupil, this slight fragrance, and also the heaven-reaching power. Exactly the same as the seven-colored little snake in front of me." Xiaoyan complained in his mind, his eyelids slightly twitching. "Yes, if it's not beyond my expectations, the little snake currently before your eyes is the legendary seven-colored heaven-swallowing python, and also the new body of Queen Medusa." Yao Lao sighed and said. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Xiaoyan looked at the seemingly harmless seven-colored little snake before his eyes with a little disbelief. This thing was the ancient strange beast that could contend with the legendary Dousheng expert. Ah. That's not right. If she is Queen Medusa, why don't I feel any murderous intent from her towards me? According to common sense, if it was truly that vicious woman, I'm afraid she would have killed me right here, wouldn't she? Staring intently at the childlike curiosity in the little snake's pupils, Xiaoyan asked in confusion. This. I don't know. Yao Lao said awkwardly. Perhaps during the evolution, she was struck by that heavenly lightning, causing her to lose her memory. Hearing these words, a few wrinkles instantly appeared on Xiaoyan's forehead. He licked his lips and whispered, "Teacher. I feel like it doesn't have any murderous intent, does it? If so, should I try to dispel the bone-chilling flame and see?" Well. All right, be careful. Hearing this, Yao Lao hesitated for a moment before nodding. Along with Yao Lao's words, the pale white flame covering Xiaoyan's body quickly disappeared. Waiting until the flame completely vanished, Xiaoyan tightly clenched his sweaty hand, staring at the seven-colored little snake in front of him, and gently and cautiously asked, "Your Majesty the Queen." The little snake did not respond to Xiaoyan's question. It blinked its crystal-clear pupils, its snake tail slightly moved, and it slowly floated and swam towards Xiaoyan. Watching its movement, Xiaoyan was terrified but still had to remain still. The seven-colored little snake circled Xiaoyan a few times, showing no intention of attacking, which made Xiaoyan let out a heavy sigh of relief. Wagging its tail and circling once more, the seven-colored little snake suddenly stopped above Xiaoyan's palm. Its clear and bright eyes stared at the storage ring on Xiaoyan's hand with a bit of longing, then looked up towards Xiaoyan and let out a few soft chirping sounds, seemingly acting spoiled. Looking at the seven-colored little snake's movements, the corner of Xiaoyan's mouth cracked open, and he smiled bitterly in his heart. I dare bet that it is definitely not Queen Medusa. With her arrogant nature, it's impossible for her to act like this. She is now seemingly no different from a newborn little snake, only with a little more spiritual awareness. Did the evolution perhaps destroy all of her previous memories? Yao Lao was also completely confused about this matter. Stunned for a while, Xiaoyan's eyes narrowed, a thought flashing through his mind. He smiled and said, "She seems to be interested in something inside my ring." As he spoke, Xiaoyan lightly flicked the finger wearing the ring, and some items appeared in his palm. The seven-colored little snake approached, its gaze sweeping over them, wagging its snake tail, and continuously shaking its head. Evidently, the thing it wanted was not here. Putting the pile of items back into the ring, Xiaoyan was not impatient, patiently taking out everything in the ring one by one. Not until he took out a small jade bottle containing purple liquid did the little snake, which was curled up in the air, instantly appear in his palm as if teleporting. Its small snake head dipped into the jade bottle to inspect it, fiercely licking it a few times with its tongue. You are reading the story taken from website name. This is Coordinating Purple Essence. I didn't expect it to want this thing. Watching the coordinating purple essence rapidly lose 1/10 of its volume, a look of pain flashed across Xiaoyan's face. Fortunately, this little fellow also knew the potency of the purple essence, and did not greedily absorb too much at once. After swallowing a few more mouthfuls, it withdrew its head. Its clear snake eyes sparkled with a little excitement. The seven-colored heaven-swallowing python is also a fire attribute strange beast. It is naturally interested in things filled with pure fire attribute energy like the purple essence. Yao Lao said with a smile, looking at the excited little seven-colored snake. Xiaoyan gently nodded, somewhat regretfully putting the slightly depleted purple essence away. Perhaps due to absorbing the purple essence, the seven-colored little snake's eyes showed even less caution when looking at Xiaoyan. Noticing the change in the little snake's eyes, Xiaoyan's heart stirred. He hesitantly stretched out his hand, gently stroking the delicate body. Looking at Xiaoyan's movement, the seven-colored little snake only slightly twisted, not avoiding it. Its small head swayed, rubbing against Xiaoyan's palm with reluctance. Seeing that the little snake's movement showed no hostility, the strange light in Xiaoyan's eyes suddenly intensified. "Heh, little fellow, are you planning to take this little guy with you?" Seemingly knowing Xiaoyan's thoughts, Yao Lao's voice suddenly rang out in his mind. Heh heh. Xiaoyan chuckled twice, licked his lips, and felt a slight excitement in his heart. This is an ancient strange beast with unlimited potential. If I can take it in, it's no less valuable than obtaining a type of heavenly flame. The seven-colored heaven-swallowing python is indeed very powerful, but she is clearly only in the infancy stage now. Although her body harbors immense power, if she wants to fully unleash it, who knows how much time and tempering it will take. Moreover, you must know that no matter how docile the seven-colored heaven-swallowing python is now, her true form, I dare to bet, is absolutely Queen Medusa. Perhaps she has turned into this appearance due to some reasons. But no one can guarantee whether she will suddenly regain her memory in the future. At that time, Yao Lao said in a deep voice, you should know Queen Medusa's arrogance and ruthlessness. Regarding the fact that you dared to take advantage of the opportunity to become her master, given her temperament, she might just slaughter you on the spot. Ah. The hand stroking the seven-colored little snake stiffened. Xiaoyan tightly furrowed his brows, pondered for a long time, then let out a soft breath, and whispered, but what if she hasn't recovered her memory yet? She is currently just like a newborn little beast, and I am the first person she saw. Regardless, I think she shouldn't have too much hostility towards me, otherwise, she wouldn't have come right next to me looking for food as soon as she appeared. This is a perfect opportunity. An ancient strange beast that can contend with the Dosheng level experts in the future, that has a fatal attraction. Ah. You are betting now. Yao Lao sighed helplessly. Heh heh, for a future super subordinate, what's wrong with taking a gamble? If that situation truly arises later, don't we still have teacher? If we can't defeat her, then we'll just run away. Xiaoyan chuckled and said. Alas, I hope you won't be playing with fire this time. Yao Lao said with a wry smile. Xiaoyan smiled lightly, carefully lifting the seven-colored little snake with his hand. The seven-colored little snake did not resist this gentle movement. Its tail wagged and wrapped around Xiao Yan's wrist, then it swung its body, seemingly playing on a swing. Little fellow, will you come with me? Placing the little snake in front of him, Xiaoyan smiled widely and whispered. His expression like someone trying to trick a lost little girl. Opening its purple eyes wide, the seven-colored little snake stared at the young man's face in front of it. A look of human-like confusion faintly appeared in its eyes. Its body straightened up, and it just stared blankly at Xiaoyan. Watching the seven-colored little snake's strange movement, Xiaoyan's heart skipped a beat. And a slightly awkward look flashed across his smiling face. He vaguely saw an arrogant and mature soul coldly looking at him inside the seven-colored little snake's body. Clearing his throat, Xiaoyan's eyes rolled. He lightly flicked the finger wearing the ring, and a bottle of coordinating purple essence reappeared in his palm. He took out a small jade chopstick still stained with a few drops of purple essence, and then gently wiggled it in front of the seven-colored little snake. When the purple essence appeared, the light in the seven-colored little snake's eyes greatly intensified. The faint human-like quality quickly disappeared. It opened its mouth and stuck out its tongue, looking at Xiaoyan as if demanding it. Heh heh. Following the seven-colored little snake's movement, the arrogant and mature soul inside its body seemed to quietly retreat. Immediately, the corner of Xiaoyan's mouth curved up into a smile. Regardless of whether Queen Medusa's soul truly existed or not, at least the current seven-colored heaven-swallowing python was unable to resist the attraction of the purple essence. The purple essence went into its mouth, and the little snake swallowed it with satisfaction. A moment later, its snake tail wrapped around Xiaoyan's wrist and slithered into his sleeve, slowly falling asleep. Ha ha. Seeing the seven-colored heaven-swallowing python's movement, the corner of Xiaoyan's mouth split open, and he immediately laughed loudly. With the help of the purple essence, their relationship was at least quickly becoming intimate. According to this situation, Xiaoyan believed that before she matured enough to possess human intelligence, he would definitely be able to make their relationship close. Gently patting his sleeve, the joy on Xiaoyan's face was hard to hide. He licked a spot of purple essence still sticking to the jade chopstick, casually allowing the searing energy to run through his body. Xiao Yan grinned, took a few steps, and looked up at the azure flame floating in the air. He smiled. After several twists and turns, this heavenly flame of green lotus core finally returned to before him. Although his heart was extremely anxious, Xiao Yan dared not be careless and reckless. This heavenly flame was like explosives. If not handled carefully, it would erupt with the destructive power it had before. He was not like Queen Medusa who could resist it for a while. If it were him, he feared he would turn into nothingness in less than 10 seconds. Teacher, how do I collect it now? Looking greedily at the heavenly flame in midair, Xiao Yan hastily asked. Collecting the heavenly flame is not easy. It burns everything that approaches it into nothingness, including energy. Excluding a few special external objects, it can only be forcefully wrapped and carried away with an endless supply of surging energy. I think Queen Medusa must have used this method initially. Yao Lao mused. However, this method consumes an enormous amount of energy. With your current level, I'm afraid even using all the Dou Qi in your body would not be enough to move it out of this small island. Ah. So what do we do now? Hearing this, Xiao Yan's face immediately fell, and he asked with a bitter smile. Ah, naturally, it's impossible for us to adopt Queen Medusa's method. We can't afford that consumption. Yao Lao chuckled and said, my previous words were for others, but you are different. You have a container that can easily carry the heavenly flame of green lotus core. Stunned for a while, Xiao Yan blinked, and a moment later exclaimed, are you talking about the green lotus seat? Ah, that's right. The green lotus seat and the heavenly flame of green lotus core are of the same origin. Using it to contain the flame can not only suppress the heavenly flame's temperature, preventing it from spreading outside, but the safety factor is also much higher than directly wrapping it with energy. Yao Lao said with a smile. Nodding, Xiao Yan quickly flicked his finger. An azure light slowly rose from the storage ring, eventually floating in front of Xiao Yan. Inside the azure light, the green lotus seat emerged like a perfect work of art, gently spinning, emitting a faint energy. Raising the green lotus seat with his hand, Xiao Yan gently tossed it towards the heavenly flame in the air. After the green lotus seat reached the spot beneath the heavenly flame, a faint azure halo spread out from it, eventually silently enveloping the heavenly flame of green lotus core. The azure halo slowly shrank. The heavenly flame also gradually sank into the center of the lotus flower without any resistance. Instantly, the empty center of the lotus flower was filled with the exotic azure flame. Success. Collecting the heavenly flame was smoother than Xiao Yan had anticipated. Looking at the heavenly flame of green lotus core contained within the green lotus seat, Xiao Yan's face showed joy. He carefully and cautiously supported the bottom of the green lotus seat with his hand, his eyes staring intently at the azure flame cluster in the center. A flicker of excitement couldn't help but pass through his dark pupils. Next, quickly leave this city and find a quiet place to devour the heavenly flame. Remember, during this time, the heavenly flame cannot be put into the storage ring. Otherwise, anything inside will be burned to nothingness by it. Yao Lao reminded him in a deep voice. Heavily nodding, Xiao Yan's body slightly trembled. The purple cloud wings shot out. He grasped a qi recovery pill and popped it into his mouth. Then, with a serious expression, he looked up at the purple light screen that was about to dissipate. The purple light flickered in and out, until at the last moment, it burst with a thump, turning into scattered light particles filling the sky. When the purple light burst, Xiao Yan fiercely stomped his foot on the ground. His body shot into the air, carrying the green lotus seat, and desperately fled out of the city. The sharp sound echoed in the void over the desert. With an explosive boom, a figure flashed, paused for a moment, and then reappeared several hundred meters away. As the figure vanished, a black shadow closely followed, its body darting like a willow leaf floating in the air. Its graceful, swaying figure combined with perfect speed was extremely captivating. The speed of the black shadow was only faster, not slower, than the person in front. Each time it shot out, it left behind an afterimage suspended in the air, which slowly dissipated under the sunlight after a while. In one continuous glide, as many as 8 afterimages appeared. One could imagine how terrifying the speed of the black shadow was. Running and chasing for a long time, Xiaoyan's silhouette once again turned into a black dot in the black-robed person's line of sight. The black-robed person calmly raised her head to look at the dark figure carrying the green lotus seat flying quickly ahead. Her brow slightly furrowed, and a low, somewhat doubtful voice came out from under her robe. This person's speed is truly a bit bizarre. While flying, he surprisingly doesn't let any dou qi leak out. Such perfect control is truly rare. How is it that I don't know of this kind of expert near the Tagar Desert? This kind of speed is hard for even some dou huang experts to compare with. If I didn't have the wind catkin afterimage movement dou technique, I'm afraid it would be difficult to close the gap. But even so, it seems hard to catch up. Under the black robe, a pair of slender black brows were tightly knitted, indicating the doubt in the owner's heart. I can't continue like this. Otherwise, if a sandstorm rises, the target will be lost. Slowly exhaling a breath like orchid fragrance, the black-robed person's snow-white jade hand reached out from under her sleeve, slowly forming a hand seal. And softly muttered, 500 meters is within attack range. Now it's a little short. Accelerate. Following the shout, the black-robed person's toes lightly tapped the void. Her graceful body slightly spun in the air, leaving behind an afterimage, while her real body mysteriously vanished. When she reappeared, she was already over 100 meters closer. Wah! Noticing the unusual sound of wind near his ear, the corner of Xiaoyan's eye glanced backward. Seeing the black-robed figure quickly approaching, he couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. Is it that dou huang? No wonder she can catch up. Yao Lao sighed softly, then teased, I see that black-robed person seems to have a little good feeling toward you. Why not try to see if she'll spare you again? Cough. Skip it. Last time she was probably just pitying my situation, this time is different. This heavenly flame is too appealing, and I'm not familiar with her. As long as her mind is fine, I think she will decisively deal with me, perhaps without even the slightest hesitation. Hearing this, Xiaoyan chuckled. Just as he was about to urge Yao Lao to speed up, his heart suddenly tensed. The hair all over his body stood on end. Be careful. Wind whirlpool wall. The cold, faint shout and Yao Lao's urgent cry suddenly rang out. And with the shout, the space dozens of meters in front of Xiaoyan became distorted. A wall entirely condensed from a fierce wind suddenly appeared. On the wall, countless wind blades spun frantically. Seeing this sight, if anyone were to rush headlong into it, they would probably be instantly cut into tiny pieces by the countless wind blades. You are reading the story taken from website name. Eyes wide open, staring intently at the rapidly approaching wall full of wind blades, Xiaoyan's pupils contracted almost to the size of a needle at this moment. Due to the excessive inertia. Even though he desperately tried to suppress his speed, his body still slammed hard towards the wall. Wah a. Stop. In his frightened heart, Xiaoyan's face was deathly pale. And just as his body was only a few feet away from the wall, the pale white flame suddenly erupted from his body. His body was also like being pinned in midair, rigidly fixed in one spot. Stopping in midair. Xiaoyan's lips trembled slightly. A massive wall was just inches in front of him, churning like a grinding machine. The continuous clanging sound was somewhat frightening. A few drops of cold sweat ran down his forehead. Xiaoyan's voice was still a little shaky. She is too ruthless. Hand over the heavenly flame. I don't know what faction you are an expert from, but offending a sixth grade alchemist is not a wise decision. A calm, cold voice slowly sounded from behind his back, with a hint of shortness of breath. Evidently, this sudden move also cost her some effort. Sigh. Teacher, prepare to fight to the death. Hearing the sound from behind, Xiaoyan immediately sighed softly. The escape plan had failed. Now, he could only begin a tragic direct battle. Alas. Do your best. It's still the same, fighting a dou huang expert. I can protect your life, but I cannot guarantee keeping the heavenly flame. Yao Lao also let out a sigh, speaking helplessly. Hearing this, Xiaoyan forced a bitter smile. If I lose my life, what good is having more heavenly flame? Still have to prioritize saving my life. Holding the green lotus seed in his hand, Xiaoyan looked at the flame at the center of the lotus, letting out a soft breath. His voice, slightly hoarse from the long flight, said, "All right, you win. Take this thing." As he spoke, Xiaoyan casually threw the green lotus seed behind him. And as the green lotus seed left his hand, Xiaoyan's foot stomped hard on the void. The two wings on his back fiercely vibrated, and his body shot down. Seeing Xiaoyan agree so decisively, the black-robed person was clearly stunned for a moment. She looked at the green lotus seed slowly flying past, then looked at Xiaoyan, who was suddenly shooting away. The black-robed person hesitated, gave up on intercepting him, and her blue wings fluttered, planning to take the green lotus seed. Just as the black-robed person was about 10 meters away from the green lotus seed, a fierce suction force suddenly appeared from below, causing the green lotus seed in midair to be instantly sucked down. Heh, sorry. Having landed, Xiaoyan spread his hand, and the green lotus seed returned to his grasp. He chuckled, not even bothering to turn his head. Xiaoyan fiercely flapped his two wings, and the yellow sand on the ground violently surged up, filling the sky in a moment. Floating in midair, the black-robed person coldly watched the rising yellow sand block her view. She lowered her head and let out a cold snort, completely ignoring the yellow sand. Her gaze swept over the surging yellow sand below. Her slender arm quickly formed a hand seal, and she shouted softly, "4-directional wind wall." Following the black-robed person's shout, 4 massive wind walls suddenly appeared, completely encompassing an area of nearly 100 meters around. When the wind walls appeared, Xiaoyan, who was on the ground and trying to escape by taking advantage of the sand screen, immediately stopped in his tracks. He stared blankly at the gigantic wind wall a few feet away, and after a long while, he forced a bitter smile. She really wants to go all out. This person is too calm. I didn't expect her to choose the most effective method in such a short time. Your Excellency, my patience has a limit, and you have reached mine. The faint, icy voice rang out again from above his head. The black-robed person coldly looked at the dark silhouette's back and slowly descended. Her slender left hand condensed a small, continuously swirling wind vortex, releasing a fierce, strong force. Her right hand flickered, and a somewhat strange-looking long sword, emitting a faint light, appeared. Sigh. With a soft sigh, Xiaoyan slightly hunched over, carefully placed the green lotus seed on the sand dune, and took a light breath. The helpless and dejected look on his handsome face quickly vanished, replaced by the grim and ruthless look of someone cornered, ready to fight like a trapped dog. Slowly turning around and standing up, Xiaoyan finally directly faced the mysterious Do Huang expert for the first time. His finger gently rubbed the storage ring, and the massive, pitch-black heavy Xian ruler appeared in his palm. Tightly gripping the heavy Xian ruler and plunging it deep into the sand, Xiaoyan faced the black-robed person, slightly shrugged, and smiled. "Seeing my appearance, you must be a bit surprised, right? The young man you casually rescued in the desert is surprisingly the one giving you trouble." Surprise, indeed very surprised. So surprised that it was almost shock. When Xiaoyan turned around, the black-robed figure suddenly stiffened. Under the black robe, a pair of beautiful eyes full of astonishment stared at the handsome face that was smiling. She hadn't expected that the person who almost caused her party to fail by a hair's breadth was surprisingly that little fellow. This was not just surprise, it was truly a shock like being struck by heavenly lightning. Hiss. Under the black-robed person's chest clearly heaved violently. Exhaling a long breath, the black-robed person was still somewhat in disbelief. She muttered in a low voice, "How could it be you? How could it be you?" Hearing the black-robed person repeat the same sentence, Xiaoyan scratched his head, looked down at the heavenly flame on the side, and said helplessly, "Sorry. I need it, so. Didn't I tell you to go back? Why are you still running around in the desert?" Under the black robe, the woman's voice suddenly carried a hint of anger. Stunned by the black-robed person's attitude, Xiaoyan felt like crying and laughing. He shook his head and said, "Big sister, I came to the desert specifically to look for the heavenly flame. Moreover, I already knew Queen Medusa possessed the item I needed. Why should I leave? The heavenly flame is currently in my hand. If you want me to hand it over, then you'll have to do it yourself. However, I will absolutely not give up easily." Xiaoyan lifted the heavy Xian ruler, pointed it towards the black-robed person, and said with a bit of heroic spirit, "You." Looking at Xiaoyan's movement, the black-robed person was actually a little amused. It had only been half a year since they last met, and this little fellow dared to challenge her. Under the black robe, her beautiful eyes, filled with both amusement and anger, watched Xiaoyan seriously challenging her. After a long while, she sighed and shook her head with a wry smile. The strong force on her arm also slowly receded. She truly found it hard to strike this person. Sigh, what a jinx! She thought to herself. A flush rose on her beautiful cheeks under the black robe. She shook her head helplessly. Her mind was in turmoil. She, who had always maintained a calm and elegant demeanor, couldn't help but softly shout, "Scram! Scram! Quickly take the heavenly flame and scram. Just consider that I didn't chase after you today." Ah! This even more bizarre action by the black-robed person directly caused Xiaoyan's face to instantly freeze. After a long while, he still spoke with some disbelief, You don't want the heavenly flame anymore. I don't have an obligation to help Guhi do too many things. This time, risking my safety to escort them into the desert has already fulfilled my biggest responsibility," the black-robed person said indifferently. As she spoke, she suddenly turned her head to look at the sky behind her, then turned to leave. Speechlessly watching the black-robed person turn and walk away, Xiaoyan suddenly said, "Where are you going?" The black-robed person paused slightly. After a moment of silence, she softly said, "Pursuers are coming. You leave first, I will cover you." That. "Big sister, are you sure your head is fine? Do you have some kind of family relation to me? A grandaunt?" The corner of Xiaoyan's mouth twitched slightly. He truly couldn't stand this woman's bizarre actions and shouted loudly, "Get lost!" Hearing Xiaoyan's words, an angry curse came from under the black robe. She swung her sleeve, and a bundle of yellow sand arrows fiercely shot towards Xiaoyan. Just as they were about to hit his head, they exploded, showering him with yellow sand. Hurriedly dusting off the yellow sand, Xiaoyan's gaze swept towards the back figure, which, despite being covered by the large black robe, still faintly revealed a graceful and captivating charm. He sighed, full of confusion, bent down, and placed the green lotus seed on his palm. Suddenly, he thought of something, and his body instantly stiffened. Raising his head, Xiaoyan's eyes stared intently at the strange long sword emitting an azure light in the black-robed person's hand. That black-robed figure suddenly merged in his mind with the beautiful, elegant, and noble figure of someone who had previously dared to contend with the purple crystal-winged Lion King. They perfectly matched, with no distinction whatsoever. In his mind, it was as if a bolt of thunder had struck through a dense fog. A person's elegant name, which Xiaoyan found hard to forget, slowly emerged from the depths of his memory. Finally, like a brand, it was fiercely engraved deep into his mind. Following the emergence of the name, the somewhat pitiful and foolish actions of the black-robed person earlier made the tip of Xiaoyan's nose feel a little red. "Yunji, is that you? Haha, I love you so much. Haha." In the sandstorm filling the sky, the young man's frantic laughter suddenly swept in with the fierce wind, reaching the ears of the black-robed person who was about to turn and leave. At this moment, the black-robed person's soft body suddenly stiffened. Her slender figure swayed in the fierce wind like a beautiful peony. Noble and graceful. Standing firm in the sandstorm, after a long while, the black-robed person sighed softly, slowly turned around, and a small arm slowly pulled down the hood. Instantly, a fair, beautiful, and indifferent face was revealed in the chaotic sandstorm. Her beautiful eyes stopped on the young man's bright face. Yunji's red lips couldn't help but curve into a soft smile. She didn't take Xiaoyan's previous statement, which carried a lethal force, too much to heart. She understood that it was merely an excited joke from the other party, although that joke did gently stir a place deep within her heart. Sigh, I was recognized after all. Yunji used her small arm to brush her bangs aside. The strange long sword in her hand lightly swung. A look of helplessness flashed across her beautiful face. Heh heh. Looking at the familiar beautiful face, Xiaoyan couldn't help but grin. He lifted the green lotus seat with his hand, took 2 steps forward, and said with a smile, "Half a year no see, how have you been?" Not bad." Lightly pursing her red lips, Yunji seemed to want to maintain her usual indifferent demeanor. However, whenever her eyes met the young man's smiling face, the forced coldness quickly melted away. After several attempts, Yunji could only let out a silent sigh, gently nodded, and whispered. Her gaze swept over Xiaoyan's body, and Yunji's beautiful eyes slightly brightened. After half a year of experience, Xiaoyan's figure was undoubtedly taller. His handsome face was also slightly tanned from traveling in the desert for several months. The originally somewhat gentle features now faintly showed a resolute look. Clearly, the young man had developed a lot in this half-year. With Yunji's status, she had seen countless young prodigies, and among them, there were many handsome men who could almost make women willingly accompany them. However, she didn't show any extra attention to those people. The man who could make her feel both surprise and joy at his growth seemed to be only this young man with a complicated relationship. You've advanced to Doshi. Looking at him now, Yunji was slightly surprised, then relieved. When they first parted, Xiaoyan had reached the peak of the Doshi level. Although with his talent, a breakthrough was only a matter of time, being able to break through so quickly within a short half-year, and also consolidate his strength, truly made Yunji feel somewhat unexpected. Just lucky. Xiaoyan smiled and nodded. His eyes sized up Yunji for a moment. The mix of joy and fright from before had calmed down. After a brief contemplation, he hesitantly asked, "How did you end up with Pil King Guhi?" Hearing Xiaoyan's question, Yunji was slightly stunned. Her eyes quickly shifted, and she softly said, "Pil King Guhi has a wide network of contacts in the Jiama Empire. I also know him and owed him a favor once. This time, he wanted to come to the desert to find the heavenly flame, and he invited me to come along." Oh. Nodding, Xiaoyan's heart once again clicked at Guhi's status in the Jiama Empire. Then, he looked down at the green lotus seat and said, "Then, if you don't bring the heavenly flame back, won't he blame you?" "Perhaps so, but my mission was only to ensure their safety. In other words, I don't have too much of an obligation. Moreover, he already regards you as a mysterious Do Huang expert, so he should understand how difficult it is to snatch the heavenly flame from a Do Huang expert. If I fail, it will be hard for him to say anything. Of course, it's inevitable that his spirits will be a little low." Yunji sighed softly. Although she had a past friendship with Guhi, she was also very aware of Xiaoyan's stubborn temperament. If she truly wanted to strike and snatch it now, she feared this little fellow would immediately turn hostile. Don't let Xiaoyan's usual maturity, which far exceeded his peers, fool you. On certain matters, he was even more obstinate than a 3-year-old child. An item he had gotten, he wouldn't let go of even to death. Her small hand lightly rubbed her aching forehead. Yunji forced a bitter smile, secretly sighing in her heart for her own bad luck. Of all people, she had to run into this little fellow. If it had been anyone else, even if the opponent was a Do Huang expert, Yunji would find a way to snatch the heavenly flame. Although with her strength, she could almost instantly take the heavenly flame, Yunji truly found it difficult to strike at this man with whom she had been nearly naked and shared a complicated relationship. This is generally about being naked and hugging, heh DG. Heh. Seemingly understanding Yunji's distress, Xiaoyan gave an embarrassed smile. He hugged the green lotus seat to his chest and muttered, "Sorry, I've been searching for this thing for over half a year. Even if you hadn't come to the desert, I would still go find Queen Medusa. But why do you need the heavenly Flame. With your current strength, even a slight touch of this thing would result in your bones being reduced to nothing. Her eyes staring at the green lotus seed in Xiaoyan's hand. Yunji's black brows slightly furrowed, and she asked doubtfully. Heh. That might be true, it's very essential to me. Xiaoyan chuckled, speaking somewhat vaguely. Source, https://triumphal.vn. Seeing Xiaoyan's vague demeanor, Yunji could only shake her head helplessly. If he didn't want to talk, she wouldn't press him. She immediately turned her head, looked at the distant desert, and said, "You should leave this place first. There are 2 Do Wangs of the Snake People tribe following behind. I will help you block them for a while." "And then what?" "I think you'll just leave without saying goodbye again." Xiaoyan shrugged and said with a smile. "Sorry, last time was truly an emergency, so." Sensing a trace of resentment in Xiaoyan's voice, Yunji had to softly explain, and then said, "After blocking them, I will rejoin Gu He and the others. After all, we had an agreement." "So hasty." With a slight, reluctant sigh, Xiaoyan smiled. Bitterly, "It was hard enough to meet, and now we have to separate immediately. I don't know how long I'll have to wait until we meet again. You people are always so mysterious." Yunji smiled faintly, looking at the young man's face. She hesitated for a moment, then suddenly said, "Are you still cultivating alone?" That's right." Rubbing his chin, Xiaoyan smiled and nodded. He didn't dare to reveal Yao Lao's existence. "Although your cultivation talent is not bad, even the best jade needs careful polishing. Cultivating alone will lead you down many unnecessary paths. If you don't mind, I can introduce a place to you. There, you can have the best cultivation conditions." Yunji's beautiful eyes lightly flashed, and she said with a smile, "What place?" Stunned for a moment, although Xiaoyan wasn't very interested, curiosity still prevailed, and he couldn't help but ask. "The Cloud Mist Sect." Yunji smiled and said, "The Cloud Mist Sect has a very powerful influence in the Jiama Empire. I happen to have a friend there. If you are willing, I can." Saying this, Yunji suddenly paused, because she noticed that the young man in front of her, whose face had been full of smiles, had become somewhat grim. "What's wrong?" Not knowing what had happened, Yunji asked with a hint of confusion. Forget it. What's a small figure like me going to do at a place like the Cloud Mist Sect? Going there would only make a fool of myself." Xiaoyan shook his head and said with a cold laugh. Seeing Xiaoyan's attitude suddenly become a little hostile, Yunji's black brows furrowed. She seemed about to explain, "The Cloud Mist Sect is not as unbearable as you imagine, and with your cultivation talent, who would ridicule you? I'm telling you this for your own good. At least there, you can directly obtain the most suitable dough techniques and cultivation methods for yourself. Moreover, the disciples of the Cloud Mist Sect are selected from thousands of miles, their quality is very good. You should be able to get along well with them." Sigh, forget it. I don't have any good feelings for that place anyway. I'm doing just fine cultivating by myself, and I'm not in the mood to go to some sect. Hearing Yunji describe the Cloud Mist Sect as so perfect, a slight unpleasantness rose in Xiaoyan's heart. Especially when he heard that their quality was not bad, a fit of anger unexpectedly erupted. Not bad? What kind of place could raise a woman like Nailin Yenran, and still be considered not bad? A grim look flashed across his face. Xiaoyan let out a soft breath, impatiently waved his hand, and said indifferently, "All right, no more talk. If you want to go find Gu He and the others, let's part ways here. I also have urgent matters, goodbye. If there's a chance in the future, we'll meet again. If you truly don't want to see me, then forget it. Thank you for today. If there's an opportunity in the future, I will repay this favor to you." As he spoke, Xiaoyan didn't waste any more words. Holding the green lotus seed in his hand, he turned around. The 2 wings on his back slightly vibrated, and he quickly flew up into the air, darting towards the distance. Standing blankly on the sand dune, Yunji watched Xiaoyan turn into a black dot. After a long while, she tightly bit her red lips, stamped her foot in anger. A look of aggrieved unwillingness flashed across her beautiful face. She had kindly made an arrangement for Xiaoyan, but didn't expect the fellow to react so strongly. This turn of events, where her good intentions were met with such a fierce rejection, truly made Yunji feel like her kindness was met with ungratefulness. That stubborn fellow. If you don't want to go, fine. Why the attitude? Yunji bit her red lips, kicking the sand dune with her toe. A fierce force shot out, creating a crack more than 10 meters long in the sand surface. Another favor. Do I really need such a small favor from a dosher like you now? After venting fiercely, Yunji's beautiful face was flushed. Her hand suddenly gripped the longsword tightly. She took a soft breath, and the rare display of emotion on her face immediately receded, replaced by an icy indifference. She slightly turned her head. At the end of Yunji's cold gaze, 2 tiny black dots were rapidly approaching. A bunch of persistent pests. Do you really think I won't kill you? The long sword in her hand pointed obliquely. A sharp sword force shot out from the tip of the sword. Yunji stared coldly at the 2 rapidly approaching black dots. The corner of her icy mouth curved into a subtle arc. Clearly, all the grievance and anger she had just felt because of Xiaoyan were now ready to be vented upon these 2 people. With a gloomy expression, Xiaoyan fiercely flew for a distance over the desert sky. Only then did his heart gradually calm down, and his flight speed slowly decreased. Remembering his previous attitude towards Yunji, he couldn't help but let out a bitter smile. It seemed he had truly been a bit excessive. She kindly introduced a place for cultivation, which was also thinking of me. Alas, I was really impulsive. Patting his forehead, Xiaoyan sighed softly. His hand gently rubbed his forehead. Remembering that when Yunji saw him earlier, despite her distress, she still gave up on the act of snatching the heavenly flame. The guilt in Xiaoyan's heart grew even stronger. The 2 wings on his back vibrated slightly. Xiaoyan's figure stopped in midair. He turned his head and looked toward the end of the desert, murmuring with some hesitation, "Should I go back for a bit?" Frowning and pondering for a moment, the corner of Xiaoyan's eye glanced at the hand holding the green lotus seat. He let out a soft breath, and whispered, "With her strength, 2 Dowongs shouldn't be able to do anything to her, right? Now, I carry this kind of treasure, the heavenly flame. If I go back, I might bring her quite a bit of trouble." Instead, muttering to himself for a while, just as Xiaoyan was about to retreat, a sudden violent change occurred in the calm atmosphere deep in the distance of the desert. 5 immensely fierce auras, covering the entire sky, suddenly erupted. The 5 auras condensed into 5 large, different-colored pillars of aura. Like 5 pillars supporting the sky, they stood firmly in the azure sky. What is this? Xiaoyan's face slightly changed as he looked solemnly at the massive light pillars at the end of his vision, and he exclaimed in surprise. Serpent people experts. 5 Dowongs. Yao Lao's old voice, tinged with a little surprise, rang out in Xiaoyan's mind. It seems the serpent people experts arrived very quickly. That woman named Yunji seems to be in a bit of trouble. 5 Dowongs. Hearing this, Xiaoyan was secretly startled in his heart. His face instantly darkened, and he tightly knitted his brows, saying, "Those people's speed is too fast. But, with Yunji's strength, she should be fine, right? After all, she is a Douhuang expert." Hard to say. A Douhuang is formidable. But a Douhuang is not weak either. Moreover, 5 Douhuang experts attacking together, and serpent people experts, due to their bloodline, can perform some joint Dou techniques. With them attacking together, that Yunji will be quite difficult to deal with. Yao Lao mused. His tightly furrowed brows became even deeper. After a long while, Xiaoyan tightly pursed his lips. His eyes fixed intently on the 5 huge pillars of aura in the desert sky, and he said without the slightest hesitation, "Then I'm going back." Suit yourself. Regarding this, Yao Lao was actually indifferent. Slightly nodding, Xiaoyan held the green lotus seat. The purple cloud wings on his back gently flapped. He turned around and began to rapidly return along the previous route. Looking at the endless yellow sand in the desert, 6 figures floated in the air. Each person's back was fluttering with a pair of wings materialized by Do Chi. As the Do Chi wings flapped, a gust of strong wind on the sand raised waves of yellow dust. In the midst of the 5 surrounding figures, the black-robed person stood indifferently. Her beautiful eyes glanced disdainfully at the 5 people around her. She softly said, "Your Excellency's speed is truly surprising to me." PFF. The flame controller's face was slightly pale as he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. At this moment, his clothes were torn. Blood flowed from all over his body, and a horrifying long, narrow scar appeared on his arm and abdomen, which was somewhat alarming. Just now, he and the leading gray-robed old man intercepted Yun Ji. Upon meeting, before they could even exchange a word, the black-robed woman, like a resentful wife abandoned by her husband, suddenly launched an attack on them. Under the circumstance of being caught slightly off guard, the flame controller bore the brunt of the attack. In just a few short minutes, the flame controller suffered several non-trivial injuries under the black-robed person's attack. If the other 3 serpent people experts hadn't arrived in time, even with the gray-robed old man's cooperation, his result would have been severe injury. After all, a Do Wang could still be considered an expert. But there was still a 1-level difference from a Do Wang. 2 Do Wangs were not qualified to clash with a Do Wang expert. Moreover, the flame controller's fighting style was a head-on clash, so fighting a Do Wang expert naturally led to a significant disadvantage. Of course, the most important reason was that this black-robed person's methods were too ruthless. Your Excellency's methods are truly vicious, audaciously intruding into our serpent people tribe. Not only do you offer no apology, but you are also so arrogant. Do you really think our tribe is without people? The gray-robed old man's gloomy eyes swept over the black-robed person and said, "Heh. Apology. But even if I did, you wouldn't accept it, would you? If it's a useless gesture, why should I bother?" The black-robed person said with an indifferent smile, "It seems your serpent people tribe, having lost Queen Medusa, will face many troubles. Shameless and despicable human. If it weren't for your interference, how could Her Majesty the Queen's evolution have failed?" The flame controller shouted furiously. "Jia. If your Excellency believes that, I fear you've made a particularly big mistake. Although Her Majesty the Queen's evolution seems to have failed, she grew up with me since childhood. Therefore, I faintly perceive that she has not truly perished. One day, she will return to the Tagar Desert and once again lead the serpent people away from this wretched place," the gray-robed old man said. With a laugh, "When that time comes, we will return and reclaim what belongs to us. Your name is Xianxia. You are the highly respected elder in the serpent people tribe, and your true strength has reached 8-star Do Wang. What you said. Perhaps. If that day truly comes, I actually hope to exchange blows with her once." Looking at the gray-robed old man's obsessed appearance, Yun Ji's dark brows slightly furrowed, then she gently shook her head and said indifferently, "Currently, there are 3 Do Wang experts within the Jiama Empire. I have met all of them, so I can recognize you. Behind you is indeed a huge power, but just wait and see, our serpent people tribe will definitely seek revenge," the gray-robed old man said with a cold laugh. "That's no threat." Smiling lightly and shaking her head, Yunji was not the kind of useless person who would be scared silly by a threat. She immediately chuckled, and slowly raised the azure longsword in her hand. A subtle curve appeared on her beautiful and charming cheeks, and she said with a long smile, "But since you said my methods were ruthless, then I don't need to hold back. Today, let's see how many of the 5 of you can escape." Although you are a Do Wang expert, trying to deal with the 5 of us Do Wangs is not an easy task. Hearing Yun Ji's words, a middle-aged serpent person in green robes, his face showing a look of ferocity, shouted loudly, "Then, let's see." The sharp longsword cut through the wind, a clear sound rang out, like a bird's cry. Just as it forcefully echoed in the air for a moment, Yunji's body suddenly vanished. When she reappeared, she had unexpectedly arrived right next to the green-robed serpent person behind her. At the tip of the sword, the azure sword force erupted to 3 feet long, cunningly and viciously targeting the vulnerable parts of his body. In the instant Yunji's body disappeared, the green-robed serpent person, with his rich combat experience, had already sensed it. His snake tail swayed. His body strangely dodged half a foot to the left, just barely avoiding the icy cold sword edge. The first strike failed. Yunji's expression showed no change. She let go of the sword hilt with her palm. The strange long sword stuck to Yunji's palm, rapidly spinning and standing upright. The sharp sword tip traced a line, gently aiming towards the green-robed serpent person's waist, a spot covered by tough snake scales. Against the pressure of the sword force, the scales seemed to be like ordinary thin paper, offering no resistance at all. Swoosh! The sword tip lightly cut. A heavy sound echoed in the sky. The green-robed serpent person covered his waist tightly with his hand. Dark red fresh blood continuously seeped out from between his fingers and dripped down. The intense pain made his face break out in cold sweat. From the moment Yunji suddenly attacked until the green-robed serpent person retreated with injuries, it was only a brief span of just over 10 seconds. By the time everyone regained their senses, the green-robed serpent person, who was among the strongest in the serpent people tribe, was already injured and retreating in a desperate state. Her speed is too fast. Don't fight her alone. Form the 5 snake venom. Kill seal. Looking at the injured green-robed serpent person, the gray-robed old man shouted urgently with a gloomy expression. As he shouted, the gray-robed old man led the way, his hands quickly forming a series of hand seals that were somewhat dazzling to the enemy. And as the seals were formed, massive azure energy quickly condensed in his palm. In the instant the gray-robed old man moved to form the seals, the remaining 4 people also quickly completed their seals at the same time. They had practiced this type of seal countless times, so as soon as they heard the command, they completed the seals at the fastest speed. As the 5 people formed their seals, in a flash, a faint shadowy energy shield appeared in the void, firmly enveloping them within. This was clearly a defensive measure to guard against sneak attacks. Watching the energy in the 5 people's hands grow denser and denser, a look of excitement appeared in Yunji's beautiful eyes. She had long heard that the serpent people tribe had some bizarre Do techniques, especially some fusion Do techniques, which could combine the strength of multiple people into one spot and then unleash it, aiming to counter high-level experts. The fusion Do technique they were currently using should be a high-tier Xian rank Do technique. This level of fusion Do technique could already be considered the highest level in the serpent people tribe. Therefore, only the leaders of the 8 major tribes had the strength and qualification to cultivate it. 5 snake venom kill. Seal. Activate. Several zhang, tens of feet tall, burst out from the 5 people's palms. The azure energy, as it shot out from the 5 people's palms, began to intertwine together. In just a short moment, an extremely huge energy pillar appeared in the sky. When the massive energy pillar appeared, a fierce wind stirred in the desert. An aura filled with bloodlust and violence emanated from the center of the energy pillar. The massive energy pillar suddenly began to churn. In an instant, the energy pillar transformed into a green serpent over 10 zhang long. Hiss! As the energy green serpent appeared, the fierce wind in the desert grew stronger and stronger. Gusts of wind, visible to the naked eye, rose up. The energy green serpent rapidly spun around its body, its roaring sound echoing throughout the desert. Looking at the massive energy green serpent in the sky, a trace of surprise and solemnity flashed across Yunji's beautiful eyes. She hadn't expected these 5 Do Wang experts could also unleash such powerful energy. Serpent people's Do techniques, no wonder they are so famous on the Do Chi continent. This bizarre fusion Do technique is truly frightening. Gently exhaling a breath, Yunji tightly gripped the sword hilt. Her entire aura suddenly changed, standing upright like a sharp sword edge. Massive azure winds began to rapidly condense around her body. Staring intently at the giant green serpent that was heading towards her, Yunji's toes lightly tapped the void. Just as the powerful attack in her hand was about to burst out, her expression suddenly changed slightly, and she hastily turned her head. On the horizon, a figure completely enveloped in the pale white flame appeared, like a teleportation, flashing in and out. Strangely, when the person appeared, he was already in front of Yunji. He raised his two palms, a sea of white flame covered the sky, and then, like a surging sea, it swallowed the energy green serpent whole. Suspended in midair, Yunji looked at this sudden scene, a light smile, surprise, and shock appearing on her face. Thank you for listening to the story on KTN Storyverse. Please like and subscribe to support the channel.